there, my name is Dr. Salim Javed, and we have been talking about how we can, produce better stories, better content, more engaging incidents, and what can we do about it. So, if you remember, we have talked about we are talking about Joseph Campbell's The Hero Journey, where we talked about the departure stage of the story, and now we are talking about the initiation stage of the story. Now, initiation stage, if you remember, we talked about the road to trial, the meeting with the goddess, and now let's talk about women as a temptress. Now, there are times when the protagonist wants to give up on his mission. This temptation is typically a romantic attention, romantic attraction, although it can also take the form of other things such as success or fortune. Now, this is something very important, that when the protagonist starts, when he finds out that he or she is into a new situation now, they cannot, get out of the situation, and they really have to stick around because now they have started a specific chain of events where they are at the center of the entire issue. Now, they really want to give it up. Now, there are times when there are situations where the protagonist, be that hero, be that the actor or the actress, is not ready to bear the burden of this entire system. So that is where they typically want to leave. But the allies or the romantic interest or sometimes the passion itself, give them power and, keep them on the track to move forward. Now, this atonement with the father is really very interesting point, because here the hero means the protagonist, and the protagonist can be male or female, both. So it is irrespective of the gender. So here is where the hero must face his or her own personal demon and the forces that have so far controlled his or her life. This is a defining moment in the narrative, the culmination of hero's journey up to this point. Now, this is something very important. Had your story been very physical in nature, where a lot of events have been taking place one after another, where there is a pace which is being established throughout the story, this is a time where your characters start introspecting himself or herself. This is a time where the world may not know, but he or she is aware where he or she is lacking and what are the things that they need to do. But there has nobody been able to support or pinpoint at that specific at that specific moment, though technically mentor has been introduced in the story. But this is something which is slightly beyond the capacity of the mentor also, which is like about, mentor is there to help him internally, morally, but there is a dark alley in us where we meander alone, where we wander alone, and those best kept secrets are there which is only known to you. So this particular department, with this particular section, which is called the Atonement with the Father, deals specifically with that, where you in the most wilderness of events are alone, at your own, with yourself, without actual self. Now, this atonement with the Father is basically where he is for the first time facing the personal demon. Now, what is a personal demon? Like, suppose if I'm sitting in the studio right now and I'm talking to you right now through this wonderful medium called mass communication, but at the same time when I'm talking to you, it is in my mind that I really have to observe myself. I have to be alone with myself, and I have to observe myself from a distance. How am I talking to you? Whether what I am saying to you is conveying a meaning or not. So technically this is one of the parts of the atonement with the Father, where I am personally dealing with my personal demon. How am I speaking? How am I delivering? Whether I am making sense or not. This is something which is absolutely inside me, which is not on my face, which is not conveyed, but has been there inside my mind with me all my life. And technically this is a point which actually helps me work more, come to you all the time in more interesting manner. So this is technically the atonement with the Father. Now technically atonement with the Father, if you go by the meaning of the atonement with the Father, you will realize that this is something to do with Father. This is something to do with, this is something to do with something else, but this is basically dealing with your personal demons. Now let's go to apotheosis. This point is particularly when hero is now has the tools necessary to face the most challenging aspect of the journey. Now this is something like a lot of people, like this can physically be executed in a very different way, where a lot of people come and say, okay, you are our hero, you are absolutely fantastic, and here is where we need you. But technically, for the first time, the hero has is made believe also, and story wise he is lot of things has been bestowed upon him. So this is called apotheosis. Now I'll give you all the examples of all these things. I'm trying to solve or give example each, and like this particular thing, the ultimate boon. The hero answers the call that sends him on his quest in the first place, and complete the task he sets out to do. Now this is something, if you have seen Black Panther, there is where the father comes as a spirit, not atonement with the Father. It is a different ball game, and he says that, Father, why did not you do it? And this is like he decides that this is something which need to be done. So if there was a stage where he was dealing with the inner demon, this is one of the stages where they find answers for their call, which has been which has technically so far your character has been doing things because people expected. Now at this stage, the protagonists feel for the first time there is an inner urge of from the character that no, this is something right, I have been doing right. So there is a self-correction, there is a self-motivation, there is a self-appropriation at this particular stage. Now let's start according to Aristotle, the end part, according to Black Snyder, breaking into three, and according to Joseph Campbell, the return part. Now refusal of the return. Now if you remember that this is something breaking into three or refusal of the return or the end part, even if the hero's quest ends in success. Now this is something very bizarre. Please understand, when you go through this point, you really have to understand the bizarreness of the point. Even if the hero's quest ends in success, he or she may not want to go back. Now this is something very dangerous. This can actually completely change the purpose of the journey. Frodo, if you remember the Lord of the Rings, he has got the ring has corrupted Frodo, and now he really wants to do what the ring wants him to do. So even if the hero's quest ends in success, he may or she may not want to go back to his or her old life. Now this is very dangerous. Now I give you a very popular example. Now imagine this point. It is not that Joseph Campbell did not read Rama, and he also read Rama, and also imagine that Ramji has killed Ravana and he does not want to come back to Ayodhya. Now this is exactly the same point. If you end your story here, there is a disaster, because it will not let there will not be a completion of the journey. This makes the character wonderful maybe in some senses, but not the protagonist of the story. There is a difference. So even if the hero's quest ends in success, he may not want to go back. Remember Swadesh, if you remember. He got what he came for. He goes back, but then he comes back again. That makes him a hero. In Swadesh, it is not that he brings electricity to the village that makes him a hero. He has all the world, he has all the wealth, comfort and everything, and when he is leaving, like there is a portion of heart going with him, and it it he goes there. He's there in his apartment in New York. He looks, he touches the soil and he feels it. So, though the story ends that he has brought light to the village and everything, it is fantastic. Rahi chala chal rahi, all that is wonderful. But what makes him a protagonist, what makes him a hero, that he could have lived his life comfortably. He does not. He comes back. He comes back to his root. That is what completes a hero. Now the magic flight is the hero must get away from the pursuers of the mission object. Mission object. Now this is something that I'll give you with example. Okay, because for this you need an example. Then you have rescue from without. A guide or the rescue appears to help the hero, much like the goddess did when he first sent out on his journey. Now this is something like sometime when, like suppose if I started a journey, I reached that point, I can stay there, but that will make me an achiever, not a hero. There is a difference between achiever and a hero. For a hero or for the protagonist, there has to be a complete circle. There is a lot of interesting things here. Like there are a lot of people. In 80s there was a trend of going abroad. There are a lot of people who went there, stayed, made a lot of money. They are achievers. There is a story, but unless they do not come back, like in DDLJ, sometimes even commercial films have got wonderful, psychology working behind the story. There are a lot of other things happening. Now, a guide or rescue appears to help the hero, which much like the goddess did when he first set out on his journey. The next point is the crossing of return threshold. Point of no return, when I was talking about the threshold point, the hero makes a successful return to his ordinary world. Now that is what makes him or her a hero. When after achieving, after after going all through the adventures, they decide to come back to their normal life. That is what makes them hero. Achievement is part of the story, but to grow them as heroes, male heroes, female heroes, to grow them as female or male heroes, they need to come back to the world from where they started. If you really think at this particular point on a deeper level, then you will understand that this is what happens. That when a lot of kids go abroad, they achieve something, family is happy, but when they actually come back and meet their families, and when they talk to live with their parents, that's what completes their life. Now that happens in normal life, and that happens in stories also. Then you have master of the two world. Now I make you understand the same point from an example also, that you have the wisdom that you have lived abroad. I'm not talking in terms of stories right now. I'm talking in terms of the character, that he has the wisdom of the unknown world also, but he has decided to live in harmony with the life that he or she started, with his or her own old and new selves towards the end of the story, earning the title for him or her the master of two worlds in the process. As a result, he must often strike a balance between spiritual awareness and the material world. Now this is something very important. It is not about leaving everything and come back to your normal life or from the set apart that I was talking about and start the journey. What is the difference? There has to be a difference, the way story started and the way story ended. The setting can be the same, but the state of mind that your protagonist is, when he could be, like suppose if in your story, if the hero was not worldly wise, he goes through a journey, he becomes worldly wise, he comes back home, but the setting is same. Now there is a difference, that earlier in the beginning of the story he was not worldly wise. At the end of the story It may look the same, but now he is smarter. So the setting may be the same, but the state of mind or the state of things also can change. So he or she is the master of two worlds. Now, freedom to live, we leave our hero free to live as he or she seems fit. Now, all these things that I have been talking about, all the points, all different points in three different categories. Now, let's understand, how do you see them in films? Like, I have taken up few foreign films, and I wish to take up some Indian films in the next lecture. Now, let's understand the ordinary world. Like most of you must have seen Harry Potter, Star Wars, Matrix, or Spider-Man, Lion King, and the Lord of the Rings that I was talking about. Now, in Harry Potter lives in the cupboard under the stairs. Now, I'm not talking about that how the film starts, how Dumbledore comes and leave the child in the best interest of his own life, the child's life. He leaves the baby on the doorstep of his guardians, technically uncle and aunt. So the boy grows up. He is not living in a room. He is living under the stairs, in a cupboard. Now, you understand, it is not that if the writer had given Harry Potter a room, it would have made a different meaning. Living in the cupboard under the stairs says a lot of things, that he is unlike, like, what do you put under the stairs? A lot of things which may sometime be used. So in the same way, the boy may sometime be used in household activity or something like that. He is not important part of life, so he is put under the stairs. Now, this is what is the ordinary world, for Harry Potter. And why it is an ordinary world? Because you know the story, and you will see how it gradually develops. For Star Wars, Luke Skywalker lives on moisture farms on very interesting name, Tatooine, And then in Matrix, you have Thomas Anderson, basically the first name of Neo, who is living a dual life. In daytime, he is Thomas Anderson, and in night he is Neo, a hacker. In the same way, you have if you have seen Spider-Man, Peter Parker is a nerdy student who is bullied by the classmates. Now, look at the similarity. When you are talking about the ordinary world, look at the similarity between Harry Potter, Spider-Man. Look at the similarity between Luke Skywalker and Thomas Anderson. And the Lion King, Simba is born, he is the heir to the throne in the Pride Land. And Lord of the Rings, Frodo, that I was talking about, lives comfortably in the shrine and visits Bilbo. Now, when you are talking about ordinary world, these are the ordinary worlds of the people that you like, you see, you look forward to, and all these things. Story structure has its peculiar way of starting. Unless the writer or the creative team does not make you feel grounded, stories are never interesting. They need to be interesting because there has to be a certain kind of a scale against which you are judging the events. Now, imagine that you start a story in Hogwarts only. What is so special about Harry Potter then, if you are starting the story in Hogwarts? You need to start the story in such a way that you feel that whatever is being achieved by this boy is an achievement. Now, that is what makes the story interesting. Like a lot of things that when I complain about lackluster content, that is where the things are given easily. Nobody is denying the fact that Harry Potter will not be a wizard. He is going to be a fantastic wizard. People are not interested in knowing that Harry Potter is how wonderful as a wizard Harry Potter is. People are interested in knowing how he does it. What is the journey? It is not about the incident. It is not about the projection. That is what sometimes we make, a mistake in a lot of our scripts. It is not about the achievement. Hero comes, kicks all, flies all, goes all. It is not about that. It's about, maybe it is about his journey that makes it a human story. It is about the Luke Skywalker. You know, he will become a Jedi. That is a different ball game altogether. Nobody is interested in that right now. What people are interested in, that how an ordinary individual like Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, Thomas Anderson, Peter Parker, Simba, or Frodo, you know, are living at the moment and what they will be achieving one day. So unless you do not establish, from writing point of view, unless you do not establish this ordinary world, extraordinary world does not have any importance. To have the desired effect, there need to be a good sort of homework, and that good sort of homework is ordinary world. Now let's take how all these people, you know, take up the call to adventure. Now, when you talk about Harry Potter, when you talk about Star Wars, when you talk about Matrix, when you talk about Spider-Man, Lion King, and Lord of the Rings, you have to understand that this call for adventure, and then in many cases refusal of the call also, that I was talking about in the previous video, you know, this call for adventure is that how it works. Like there are 5-6 stories, and how this call for adventure is shown across this in different films in different ways. Now let's start with call for adventure. Now in Harry Potter, Harry receives a letter to attend Hogwarts school. He is nobody in the story. He is living under the staircase. He is living in a cupboard. And how come he or she can receive an invitation from, you know, one of the colleges which is like highly reputed? Now this is something interesting. Now when, like, suppose if I'm living an ordinary life, and I do not know that I have applied from somewhere, and suddenly from Oxford I receive a call that Dr. Salim, you are invited to give a lecture. That will be very surprising, because this is something which has not been in my imagination. How come I can receive this? So this receiving a call from Oxford will be a sort of an adventure, that how come this has happened whereas I have not applied for it. Now in the same way, Harry receives a letter to attend Hogwarts school. Now when Harry receives a letter from Hogwarts school, now imagine Harry is completely unaware of the fact that from which sort of a family he is coming. Now he has been living with his aunt and uncle, and they are in habit of giving him a certain sort of a treatment. Now in that certain sort of a treatment, he cannot expect to receive a letter from a school, doesn't matter if it is a normal school or Hogwarts, to receive a letter, because he has never imagined of being so worthy about himself. Now in the same way, look at the Star Wars. That's the name of the robot. R2D2 gives Luke a message from Princess Leia asking Obi-Wan Kenobi to help her. Now he has been living his life, Luke has been living his life in a very interesting area which is far from the Empire, if you have seen the film Empire, and he is nobody in this world, and he receives a message, he receives the princess message, Leia's message, now and asking Obi-Wan Kenobi to help her. Now who is Obi-Wan Kenobi? Nobody knows. There is a call for adventure, and he is like Luke is completely unaware of who is Leia, or who is Obi-Wan, who is Kenobi, and he is completely unaware of the fact. Now imagine that I live in a village. Now this is something, let's Indianize these two examples. I live in a village and I am being called by Ratan Tata. Now in my wildest of the imagination, I have no connection with Ratan Tata. But I receive a call from Ratan Tata that you are required at this place. Now if this sort of an invitation is coming to me, it means there is something very interesting life which is hidden not only from me but from audience also. And that interesting life becomes the point of curiosity, and in writing it is called hook. Thank you very much.